So I have a confession to make. I'm terrible at growing houseplants. I love houseplants. I can't imagine living in a house without houseplants, but I just don't take that good a care of them. In fact, I sort of lose interest. Now, this past year I did better than I have in the past. I added a few little lights to give them some more light. Many of these houseplants I sort of keep. I mean, some of them I like, but some of them I keep because they have some sentimental value to me. But I still, especially once outside gardening gets started, I lose a little bit interest in taking care of them. So by the time my houseplants get to come outside for their what I call their summer vacation, they are looking pretty bad. Sometimes people email me for houseplant advice, and unless I know it for a fact, I generally try to point them in the direction of people who know a lot more about houseplants than me, because I feel like I have no business telling anyone how to grow houseplants. So we're in the middle of June here now, and normally I would have brought these plants out a couple of weeks ago, but we wanted to repaint the pergola before we brought them out. And so today is the day that they get to come outside for their summer vacation, and I am positive that the only reason my houseplants continue to live is because they they spend the summer outside. So it's the middle of June, and normally I would have brought the houseplants outside probably a couple of weeks ago, depending on nighttime temperatures. But this year we wanted to paint the pergola on the deck before we brought everything outside. So we got that project finished, and now they get to come outside. I am positive that none of my plants would be alive if they didn't spend their summer outside. Here they get taken much better care of. They love the rain. I stick them in this corner of the deck, so this corner faces southeast. It gets, morning sun, and that's it. They like that. But I'm going to bring all the houseplants out today, fess up to my houseplant sins, and then I'll show you how I acclimate them to being outside and what I do for them. So now it's time for the big haul out. I will tell you, I look forward to this day because it clears out the house. I can clean things up a little bit. They are out of the house, and everyone's better for having them made their way outside for the year. So let's get them outside. Okay, so let's do a little houseplant tour here and fess up to how terrible they all look. So over here in the corner, we've got a philodendron. God bless the philodendron. Completely abused and still looks good. Dry as a bone. I haven't watered any of these, you guys, for probably a month, with the exception of the staghorn fern and maybe the ficus. Dry as a bone, still looking good. Probably what I'll do is cut a lot of these really long branches off, and it will reshoot nice new growth that's kind of a little bit more manageable. Next to that, you all know the name of this plant, and I always forget it. I had it in the garden in the on the other side of the house last year, and in a video, everyone knew the name of it, and now I still can't remember it. This is a plant that loves water, and you guys look, it's like, can you see this? It's just dry as a bone in there. So, abused, completely abused. Then we've got, a foxtail fern here, which is in too small of a pot, only because I think it likes the small pot, but I've got it so filled up that I really should find a different pot to repot that into. Also dry as a bone. This will get moved probably out of here once it acclimates a bit more. Then we've got 2 spider plants. I happen to like this spider plant. I like the variegation on those leaves. Let's just talk for a moment about this really hideously ugly spider plant. This spider plant is only with me still because it's the first plant I ever really bought. When I moved into college, the day I moved into college, I went to the farmer's market on the square in Madison, Wisconsin, and bought this plant. And this plant has been with me ever since. It lived through being left at college for winter breaks. I moved to New Zealand for a year and left it with somebody who forgot about it. It just keeps coming back. And so I can't give up on this plant because despite all the abuse, it has never given up on me. But we are going to have to make it look a little nicer. Look at what I've done to these beautiful begonias. I mean, they're just terrible. I have actually already cut it back and rooted it, but I think what I'm going to do is cut all these big long guys back and just reroot all these because this is so ugly. There is actually a second begonia in here, which is actually this little pretty guy who is really upset. And then this is, I forget what that plant is called. I just picked it up to fill up some space. I think we'll just rip that out and replace that. Oh my God, it's so bad. Over here I have a paddle plant, which every once in a while when it gets too big, I just cut off and reroot so that it stays low. Once that gets acclimated to outside, I'll move that into a sunnier spot. And then I just have these 2 Phalaenopsis orchids, which I just bring outside, and what I do is I will just stick them in the base here. I take them out of their, just have them in their little plastic pots that they came in. I take them with the holes in it so they have plenty of drainage. I take them out of their pretty ceramic pots, but they get to spend the summer outside too. So now we need to go about fixing some of the damage. So if there's one plant here that truly is special to me, and if there's one plant here that I do want to make sure does well, it's this ficus. This was my grandmother's ficus. It's been in my care since she died, which was I think 12 years ago now. She had 2 ficuses in her living room forever. They were her Christmas trees. She would decorate these with ornaments when she got older and didn't want to put up a big Christmas tree. My sister-in-law has the other one. It has this braided trunk, which is pretty cool, and it's doing better than it was. However, I've had to prune it quite a bit. It doesn't fit in the house very well. It can't go in the room where I keep the rest of the plants. It only fits in the living room, so I have to give it supplemental light. I deal with scale on it quite a bit, although this year I think I've got that problem more or less under control. And since I've started pruning it a bit, it has filled out. It was getting pretty sparse. I think I'm going to prune some more in a bit, not right now. So this is a special tree, and it gets special treatment because of it. I am also quite fond of my staghorn fern, actually ferns, there's 2 of them in there. So this is a special plant to me only because I just really like it. I think staghorn ferns are just the coolest, and this one gets a little bit more attention than the others, and it does have, there's at least 1 new frond on here. So I usually hang that over the table, so it's sort of like almost like a centerpiece, although if you're sitting at the table it's a little bothersome sometimes, so I do sort of slide it over. But I like the way it looks sitting there, and it seems to do well in this little basket so far. Okay, now since everything is just super dry, I'm gonna just water everything really, really well. And then I'm gonna go in there and I'm going to just give them a really low dose of a kind of general fertilizer. So I do go through and give them all a rinse on their leaves just to try to get some of the dust off and clean them up. Give them a fresh new start after that long, terrible winter inside. And then the last thing I do is make at least an attempt to try to get some harvest guard, row cover, shade cloth, whatever you can call it, on top of this guy, because even though this is a relatively shady spot, this is the most light that this plant has had in a long, long time. So it will absolutely scorch if I don't protect it in some way. Although I will tell you, when it's this big, it is not easy. Okay, so that's all I do for them right now. I mean, obviously we keep up on the watering and I try to push some fertilizer for the first part of summer. I don't know how long that shade cloth will stay where I put it, but any protection I can give it is helpful at this point. And then of course, there's a whole process to bring them back in fall. Basically, the main thing I do is wash them all off for about a week. Almost every day I wash all the leaves, trying to get off any bugs that I possibly can that might be there. I also scrape off the top, maybe inch or two of soil, and then I add some new soil on top of it. I don't go and repot anything unless it really needs it. But I do freshen up the soil that way. And then of course I make sure to cut back on the fertilizing in late summer, because what you're trying to do is get them to sort of go to sleep. You don't want them pushing a lot of new growth. And then at some point I will do some more pruning on the ficus to try to keep it a little tighter and manage it for size so that it actually fits in my door. So if you grow houseplants, consider letting them summer outside if you live in a place where you can do that. Shadier is better. Even shadier spots are brighter than probably the light they're getting inside your house. So, you know, keep that in mind. Don't fry them. Try to acclimate them a little bit, although most of these I'm just sort of throwing out here. They just have to kind of fend for themselves. Again, don't do what I do. All right, that's it, you guys. We'll take a look at the house plants later this summer and see, you know, how they're all looking. I can almost guarantee you they'll be better looking than they are now. Have a great day in your garden.